and welcome to the SNS ICE podcast, your go-to source for the latest news and in-depth insights into the world of 6G in Europe. Join us as we dive into industry news, analyze the latest trends, and discuss the development of the new generation of cellular networks.
Hello everyone. So welcome to the podcast Advancing Diversity in Telecoms and R&D. I'm Pooja Mohnani, project manager at Eurescom, and I work on the area of mobile communication, AI and cloud, and I believe that it is to accelerate sustainable digitization of European industry. My company Eurescom has more than 3 decades of experience in managing international collaborative research and development projects, programs, initiatives in the ICT sector, and maintains a large network of international experts in ICT and high-tech centers. So with us, we are joined by Alexia, González, Fanfalone. So welcome, Alexia. I request you to introduce yourself. Sure, in a while. And we are also joined by Hakima Chaouchi and also Prachi Sachdeva from TNO. So welcome once again, and we start with you, Alexia.
Thank you very much. My name's Alexia González Fanfalone. I'm the head of the Connectivity Services and Infrastructure Unit at the OECD, which is an international organization with 38 member countries. We have a working party with the same name that was founded in 1988, and we accompanied basically all OECD countries through the liberalization of their telecom sector. We provide tailored recommendations on how to expand connectivity for all, high quality and affordable. And sometimes we also do country reviews. And in general, we've been working on the topic of networks of the future for a while, including 5G, fixed broadband networks and their evolution, also 6G. And I will share a little bit in a little while our latest publication on Digital Economy Outlook that looks into what's happening or what may happen in the next decade.
Very interesting. Now, Hakima Chaouchi, would you like to give us some insights on what's your role in IMT and how you're looking at it?
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation. My name is Hakima Chaouchi. I'm a professor at Institut Mines Telecom with a scientific background related to cybersecurity, telecommunication, and cloud technologies. I am also head of digital sovereignty and sobriety strategy at Institut Mines Telecom, and I serve as a scientific advisor at the French Ministry of Higher Education and Research with different research and innovation programs related to digital sciences.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Next, the stage is yours, Prachi.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Let me start by saying what a wonderful honor it is to share this panel with such talented women. Thanks for having me here. I'm Prachi Sachdeva. I work at TNO, which is the Netherlands Organization for Applied Scientific Research. I focus on 5G and 6G challenges, their applications, use cases, etc. And we know how important standardization is to the telecom industry. So I myself am an 3GPP SA2 delegate.
Cool. I think the podcast is going to be really very exciting because we have so much diversity in the room. And let's start with you, Alexia. So you have a very recent publication that caught my eye. Could you please give us some insights on that?
Sure. So we have a flagship publication. It will be in 2 volumes. The first volume was released in March, and it's called Digital Economy Outlook. We do this every 2 years at the OECD. And the first volume contains a spotlight on next generation wireless networks and the connectivity ecosystem. It's a spotlight is like a very short piece, a 10-pager, but don't be deceived. It summarizes many, many hours of desk research on what is the latest on the 6G visions out there, and what are countries looking at when we talk about overarching policy objectives, and how questions of how that will be mapped in the standardization phase, as well as what will policymakers have to look at, right? With these new challenges as the connectivity ecosystem changes. And we will also be releasing volume 2 that has trends on access and connectivity. It's a full chapter and will be released in Tallinn, Estonia, in I think 20th of November for the digital summit there. So I can say one of the things that struck my attention on how things might develop and may see the light of day after 2030 commercialization is that there's overarching policy objectives that are discussed, such as environmental sustainability and as well as inclusion, how to expand coverage. And the key question is when we talk about KPIs of a standard, and that probably is a question for the very talented women here in the room. I caveat, I'm an economist by training, PhD economist, so not an engineer, so I have to disclose that. Is how are these policy objectives are going to be mapped into the standardization phase? And to your question, I think that's where diversity and inclusion of multiple stakeholders, so not only those on the industry working on the standards, but multiple stakeholders such as policymakers, but of a range of regions of the world. So not only the leading economies all over, and of course genders and is important because that will determine the reality we might want to see. And we don't want to be caught up like after the fact of, oh, this is what happened with the technology. It's as with AI, it has to be human centric. The same thing with 6G if it becomes a network of networks with multi-layered architecture, I guess that's where the conversation gets interesting. How are we going to get everyone on the table to discuss this? And more than answers, it just provides questions. Yes.
Yeah, that's a very interesting thought. And I mean, taking these ideas into something which is yet to be built, and while in the making we accommodate and we include, is a great way to take it further. So thanks for those insights. So, Hakima, what sustainable practice you think could foster gender inclusion, or if you could share a few pieces from your place of work that include, encouraging and promoting women at work.
Yeah, this is a very good question. In fact, when it comes to inclusion at work in these domains, you think about the whole maybe context and framework that brings people in the workplace, not only women but also men. And there, I believe that it is important to remind for Europe, but worldwide, digitization is getting in a full pace, and we need more and more people engaging in digital jobs. I must say. So we need to have policies to be applied plus industrial engagement to implement them in order to have a sustainable approach, getting digital skilled people in the workforce. So we can, for example, mention some policies trying to get, for example, gender equality in some domains or positions. But of course, the idea is to get skilled people in the corresponding positions. And then what is challenging is probably to have some tools to track and measure the effect of these policies in the workplace, if we are really getting the mix of this inclusive workplace. And then you have also some other ideas that are implemented in different industries, but also in higher education institutions like the one where I work, which is making the workplace better engaging for the people coming from different environments. So I can give some examples. In my workplace, there are, for example, initiatives to have girl students. In my institute, in fact, we have a group of high engineering schools. So educating very highly skilled young people to go in the digital workforce. So we have, for example, initiatives like ambassadrices, we say, like the girls becoming ambassadors to go in, for example, in in schools before coming to the universities, to give testimonies about how very nice is to be in these kind of jobs. How these kind of initiatives nurture a sort of passion regarding the attraction of the people to work in these digital jobs. And for this part, nurturing the passion needs actually to start also earlier. But at least what we can do where we are is really to give a very positive angle of how these type of jobs are interesting for the new generation. And the other thing that is important from the industry place is to give a good perspective for the career when entering in these type of jobs. Because I can also tell you, for example, when we hire new students coming in the engineering schools, we have very talented students, very good in maths and physics. These are like the basics to go into engineering, for example. And sometimes they will follow a path to do, for example, management, because they have this information, like the careers from the management side is going to be better somehow in the evolution. So there is a need also, in addition to the education initiatives, to attract students there from the industry side, to have also an interesting career projection for this new generation in the workforce.
Thank you, Hakima. It was quite an insight, and great to know that budding engineers or budding students are taking those roles. So, being the ambassador to,
Yeah.
send the message out. Great. My question is to you, Prachi. So, what challenges do you see in women in telecom research and development? How do you think, or do you have a story to share with us that you had a challenge and how did you overcome it?
Well, I see that there are the usual challenges for women and for diverse groups in telecom, just as in any other scientific field. Let me take, for example, specifically standardization, because that was already mentioned. The group that I represent, SA2, we have about 6 meetings a year, which requires you to really travel a lot. We notice that on the younger levels, there are a lot of women involved that are in the, let's say, early stages of their career. When we get to more senior levels, it becomes lesser and lesser, because just how life progresses, the sort of travel, the travel that is expected out of the delegates for a role like this is better sustained by men than by women. And there are so many such things in the industry where, just let's say the need to deliver in a certain way is met better by men than by women. And I think that here there is a need for structural support. Your employer can support you in a way that you can make an equal representation, that you can present yourself at these fora without having to sort of sacrifice other things. So I think the core problem and the core solution also is to understand that there are different needs as life progresses for both men and women, and your employer needs to really support that. Um, as you know, we work in the SNSIs project together, Pooja, which is and I must mention here that our esteemed moderator is making a lot of efforts in this wonderful group on women in telecom and research. You've, Pooja, organized a lot of lovely events. Yesterday itself, we had a wonderful event on gender diversity. I've seen you work very hard on events, both at Techratory last year as well as EUCNC in the past years. And when speakers come up and they talk about their stories there as well, the KPIs are really low. I mean, yesterday someone was sharing that women in IT is less than 20%, which really surprises me, because sometimes when you don't look at the numbers, you don't see how low it is. But it is very low. But the beautiful thing about these projects is also they take a genuine effort, because very recently we had our period 1 review for this SNSIs project. And one of the things that came back in the review was also that the reviewers were looking at, when you organize events at these places like EUCNC or Techratory, and you're holding a panel or you're holding a discussion what is the gender diversity in your panel or your discussions? Now, this seems like such a specific thing to look for in a project assessment, but I very much appreciated that, because if you're not looking for these markers in the smallest of things, then you cannot aggregate it when you get to the top. So it's only when you start looking at this in every particular situation, in every project, that's when you get to the top and you can really aggregate those results and stack them up. At TNO, where I'm working, my department is actually led by two women. Both of our managers are women. And in the past, I've also had female managers. And you really do see the difference in tackling, let's say, conflicts, in tackling different situations, how the approach drastically changes when you shift the gender, but also when you shift the culture. I mean, people from different cultures take very different approaches towards things. As you know, I'm from the Netherlands now, where I work, but I'm originally Indian, and the Indian system is very hierarchy based. I mean, we're not very direct to our bosses, but the Dutch culture is extremely direct. You can go and say anything to your superiors, and you notice that different people from different cultures deal with things differently. And one of the challenges also here is that we're not educated enough on cultural sensitivities. We're not educated enough on gender sensitivities, because it's a human tendency to view everything through your own lens. I mean, if I'm looking at something, I'm always thinking that my view is the norm. And most people do that. So I think starting with basically a cultural sensitivity or a gender sensitivity workshop, especially as people move into higher positions, becomes so important. Because if people are not sensitive, you can't do what you cannot see, and it gets harder to show people as they move up.
Thank you, Prachi. It was quite a strong insight, and I think we can all evolve with that. And with that, I would really ask you if anyone would like to share one success story, maybe Alexia, that how you were empowered, to reach where you are today. That would be a inspiration for all people who believe, that everyone can really make a difference.
Well, okay, this is so here I'll speak about my personal experience on the capacity as Alexia, as a person not representing the OECD. And I think first off is I would have to say my mom, who no longer is with us, but my mom always believed in me and all. We're five siblings, and there was no distinction between men and women in my household. Actually, I was not aware of differences between gender until later in life, because we all had to do all types of chores. So like my brothers would cook and I would do handiwork, etc. So she always instilled in me this, that you can do anything you put your mind to. So I think that that's important from a young age, to not have the boundary of the limits of what you can achieve. So I come from a town in northern Mexico. Yeah, very traditional, and their roles are very traditional, and so this is something that helped a lot. But then, and during my career, more specifically, in telecoms, I started when I was 24, my first real job, and the regulator of telecoms in Mexico. And I had the virtue of having really formidable mentors. My former boss, male, right? He believed in empowering women, and the possibility that you can reach the stars and all that. So I think I've had really strong people during my career. So that was in Mexico. But then when I arrived to the OECD as well, my former boss, one of my bosses was also male, part of the Women's Network in Telecommunications. He was a firm believer that diversity was important in this sector, and empowered as much as possible. So I think that's why I think the conversation has to be opened up when we talk about these topics. It also has to include a broad range of perspectives. And I really like what you said about cultural diversity. Right now in my team, I have one person who's from Japan, one who's from Quebec, another one who is from the United States, another one who's Spanish, myself who's Mexican and American. And so it's a broad range of perspectives, also very gender balanced. And I think one of the main things that we might need as a whole going forward as humanity is to practice empathy. And that empathy might come from, okay, your different cultural experiences, your academic background, even empathy between economists and lawyers that sometimes we don't see eye to eye in regulation. And, it's not only culture, is also the professional background. It's also many things that might filter a way of viewing the world. And as long as we are open to talk to each other, to try to understand and listen, really listen, not with the view of like, I'm right and I'm just going to think of how I'm going to reply, but the view of like, oh, where are you coming from? I didn't know that. Receptive listening, I guess. I think that will be important in all aspects of life, but especially in the professional realm. And I go and hone it as what we do and what we think of the future and the importance of making human-centric technology the 6G standard. I think it will be important to have a multi-stakeholder approach, public sector, academia, the private sector, but also from different regions of the world that have different constraints, because our constraints shape what we view the world and also understand where we want to get to, right? So I guess it's a long answer. I don't think I really answered your question, but it gives an idea.
Of course, of course. I mean, and thank you for those insights. So to sum it up, I would say that it's very important to kind of have tangible steps, beginning in your organization and get engaged with diversity focused initiatives and networks around you, and always be empathetic, be ready to take risk and go for it. So thank you, ladies, for collaborating. It was a wonderful to get your insights, views, opinions, and I hope it is meaningful and worthy for the time we spent. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pooja.
This podcast is brought to you by SNS ICE, an EU-backed project focused on creating a collaborative environment for the development and deployment of 6G smart networks and services. The project has received funding from the European Union's Horizon Europe Research and Innovation Program under Grant Agreement number 101095841.